If you've got a fast car or you want one, watch this video before you enhance the engine's performance anymore. If you're like me and you're in your early 20s and you've got somewhat of a fast car, your first thought is probably about making the car faster. You get the car and the first mod you're probably thinking about is a downpipe and tune, especially in my case with a B58. It's the first mod people go for. Let's get 150 horsepower and chase performance. And for like the first 2 weeks of driving the car, it's absolutely brilliant. Until you realise you actually have to stop, take a turn, or it rains. And then you realise you probably built something a little bit too fast for the actual road conditions and your driving style. No, I'm not saying don't tune your car. I love power, and I've tuned every single one of my cars that I've ever owned. The way that people actually modify their car or the way they do it, that's not the problem. It's the order of events that they do the modifications in. And that's the part that could put you in a hedge. So let's be honest with ourselves for a second. Let's talk about the truth about modifying cars in general. Most of us start modifying our cars at an age that is way too young, and also probably when we don't have the funds to actually modify it properly. Now, you could be scrolling TikTok, and like in my case, you see a modified M240i with 500 brake, and it's shooting flames at the back of the exhaust. And you think, yeah, I would really like my car to be like that. But this is the key problem, and one part everyone seems to miss. And when people see this type of content online, they're not thinking about the tyres on their car, they're not thinking about the suspension, and they're not thinking about the brakes. Their quick thoughts that come to their mind are probably, how can I get my car to be as fast as possible? Now, don't get me wrong, I love a competition, and I'm always after to try and have the fastest car amongst all of my friends. Let's just take the B58 for example. This engine is absolutely stupid when it comes to making power. We've talked about it a lot in previous videos. For example, to get upwards of 100 horsepower on this car, you simply have to add a downpipe and you have to tune it with MHD, for example. And one thing I think that is quite slept on, especially with these BMWs, for example, is they're crazy fast from the factory, let alone when you tune them. And now this car is pushing 450 horsepower, for example. It is just an absolute death machine. And in a straight line, these cars are stupid quick. I'm not going to sit here and pretend they're not. You will absolutely shock people. But none of that speed or power is free, and you'll pay for it in areas that you ignore. Now, if you are a subscriber of mine, you'll know this is my M240i. It's running a stage 2 MHD tune, it's making about 450 horsepower, and it is an absolutely incredible fun car to drive, and I love it. But there was one thing I did with this car compared to my previous M235i with the N55. I took that car on track a lot, and it had good power, but I completely left out suspension and braking. And don't get me wrong, for fast road driving and occasional track use, these cars out of the factory are pretty well catered for, but there were some points on a Nürburgring, for example, where the car got a little bit sketchy. That's when it clicked that power and speed is fun, but suspension and brakes is the difference between having a good day and having a very bad day. Now with this car, it could be so easy to chase numbers. I could chase 800 wheel if I wanted to, because the engine, like we've talked about, is so capable. And I could quite easily do that. I could post the graph, flex it on my Instagram, show everybody on TikTok that I've got an 800 wheel M240i. Now let's get to the juicy stuff within this video. Brakes and suspension. They shouldn't be something you are adding after you've chased performance. And I'll say it, I know there's going to be a few people that agree with me, but if there are maturer people watching this video, you'll understand where I'm coming from. I've been a culprit of wanting a car that has a loud exhaust, a pop and bang tune, something which is stupid fast. But at what age do you actually realise that that stuff needs to come later, and you need to focus on making sure the car handles correctly first? And you might be thinking to yourself, but I don't need to do that. I live in a city, or I'm not taking my car every weekend to get tracked, for example, and I completely agree. And these are actually all really fair points to think about, and I totally agree. But if you look at these UK roads, it is slippery, and I have good tyres on this car. I'm running Michelin Pilot Sport 5s, and these are some of the best tyres on the market. And then again, if you live in the UK, you'll know about the UK road conditions. Having a 450 horsepower rear-wheel drive car with these conditions doesn't end well. Now I'm going to take you back to midsummer when we actually picked this M240i Up. It was already tuned by a very renowned British company, Venturi. They created the air intake on this car. And the previous owner had all this work done, and they'd obviously paid quite a lot to have a full custom tune done. And don't get me wrong, the car was stupidly fast. And then we decided to push the car quite fast, had a bit of fun with it. When this thing got up to some crazy speeds, on private land of course, it felt unbelievably unsafe and scary. And that is when we knew that this car was already fast enough, but we had to sort it out with the way it actually handled, because when this thing got up to speed, it was scary. So let's talk a little bit about what's actually been done. Now, whilst I run you guys through a few upgrades that we actually did to this car, you've got to bear in mind that this car is far from finished, and the upgrades regarding suspension work, there's still a lot more to come. But this is what's been done so far. Now in there, we've got Bilstein B6 EDC shocks. Now I was lucky enough to find an M240i that came with adaptive suspension control. This is huge, especially on the 2 Series in my opinion. What this means is, when you're in comfort mode, the shocks go quite sloppy, and it's just an all-round really pleasant ride. If you put the car in sport mode, for example, the shocks stiffen up, more for kind of fast road and track use. Now these shocks, they weren't cheap. They they're a pretty penny, but instantly they transformed the car. So we had them fitted, and then we had a fast road set up on the car so the geometry was actually working well to go with those shocks. So already then we've sorted the car being able to go around corners a little bit better, but that's just one part of the puzzle. You've also got to be able to stop. So let's look at the brakes, for example. Now these may not look like anything special. These are the J-hook two-piece floating discs. So what this means is they've got better heat management. They don't warp when they get really hot, for example, and they hold the temperature better, combined with braided brake lines. And then we've also got Ferodo DS 1.11 pads. Here's a little bit of information for anybody considering those pads. Don't fit them if you've got silver alloys, because you'll spend every hour of your life cleaning them. Now this is something which is a little bit optional, and that's brake fluid. If you're pushing the car quite hard, it's very easy to boil the brake fluid. So I personally put brake fluid in that has a higher boiling temp, but that is quite optional. Just the slight upgrades of discs and pads that I've talked about will help so much when it comes to actually stopping your car. Here is something which you guys might be a little bit controversial on, and that is tyre setup. I run the same tyres all round the car because I personally hate having just mismatched tyres all round, and we are running the Michelin Pilot Sport 5s, some of the best tyres in the market at the moment. And during the summer, like I mentioned, if you follow the channel, you'll know that I used to run Accelera 651 Sports on the M240i, and I did a lot of track use on them. They were a semi-slick. In the summertime, they were great. I wouldn't dare use them with the UK road conditions at the moment. So let's flash back a little bit to the kind of beginning of this video. If you've got an M140i or a 240 or a 340 or any sort of inline 6 turboed BMW or any turboed car in general, don't focus on the power to start with. Like we've mentioned, these cars are stupid quick from the factory. A stage 1, that's already enough power to enjoy happily. A stage 2, again, too much arguably. My advice would be save your money, upgrade the suspension, the brakes, make the car handle really well, and then chase some power. If I could go back in time, that is something I would have done with all my cars, instead of being the young lad I was and chasing power to start with, then realizing the car is actually quite dangerous, and then doing some handling modifications. And if you've been to a car meet or you meet someone who's interested in cars and you see that their car's stock, but they've spent quite a lot of money upgrading the suspension and brakes, in my opinion, I get a lot more respect for that type of person, because it shows that they kind of value their life a little bit more than showing off at a car meet with 500 horsepower and stock suspension. Some of you keen viewers might have noticed I didn't mention an LSD. An LSD on rear-wheel drive BMWs is a must, and in my case on my M240i, it's something I'm definitely going to be looking at for the future, because I've done the suspension, I've done the brakes, but the diff, that plays another massive part when it comes to power on these cars. If you read the forums on them, everyone says they don't just buy it just so they can do a few donuts in the car park. They buy it because it gives you way more confidence when pushing a car like this round corners at some speed. And of course, eventually, when I have one and it's on this car, I'll be making my install guide, showing you guys my first impressions, if it actually is what people make it out to be, and seeing all round what it's like and if it's worth the money. So there we have it. That's basically my rant over. Modify your car in a way that gains respect. Don't do it like 90% of people. Don't chase power first. Try to sort out the suspension, try to sort out the actual geometry of the car and the brakes, and then chase some power. And for anybody interested, I'm making this video on behalf of cars that come a little bit sloppy from factory. If you've got an M3, for example, that's an M car. BMW set that car up from factory. I'm talking for more cars which are on the cheaper bracket, the more basic BMWs with powerful engines, for example, or just general cars that can make power really easily, but the actual driving feel is a bit poor. I'd love to know any feedback you guys have on today's video. Have you modified your car? And have you actually done it with suspension, brakes and geometry set up first? Or have you done the thing like most people do and chase horsepower instead of actually focusing on the more important mods? Leave any comments you have down below. I'd love to hear what builds you guys have done, all that kind of stuff. Apart from that, you guys can do all the boring stuff like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.